Ladies and gentlemen, now we dey enter loops, for and while loops. Once again, we dey continue wetin we don dey talk about for a long time. We be say programming na wetin we dey use make our lives dey easier. We don see how we fit take make programming make our life dey easier with functions and if statements. Loops na another way wey we fit take achieve the same thing. A lot of time for programming, we wan do something over and over again for a specific amount of time. Now, instead of writing the same code every time we wan do this thing, we fit use loops. We go just write a loop with just 1 or 2 lines of code, and this loop na im go help us do that same thing as many times as we like. That same 1, 2 or 3 line of code, we fit run am 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times if we sabi how to write loops. So loops na just one code wey dey repeat something many times, but also e go repeat am in a way wey we fit control using specific conditions. Now, JavaScript get different styles, different types of loops wey we fit use for different scenarios. For loops na the most common type. For loops dey good when you know how many times you wan repeat something. We also get different types of for loops. The first wey we get na the simple for loops, like this example. Now, for this example, you go see say the general idea of how we did the write for loops dey simple. You go begin with the for keyword to say, okay, na for loop I'm all right now. And then you go open brackets like we do for our function and our if statement. And then after the bracket of the for loop, you go call open another curly braces and close them. So now inside these curly braces, na in wetin we wan do as many times as we specify for our for loop, na here e go dey. So this code inside these curly braces go run as many times as we specify for our for loop. No matter what we write there, once we specify am inside this bracket of our for loop, e go dey run continuously. So now in this kind of for loop, inside this bracket after the for keyword, we dey set our variable, initial variable I, we dey set am to be equal to 1. Now this our initial variable I fit be anything. E fit be J, L, e fit be words like brown color, blue, black. E fit be anything. But for programming, especially for JavaScript, we dey always use I as our initial variable. But just know say e fit be anything, but to make am short and sweet, we dey use I. So we said let I equal to 1. Now you go know why we dey set this initial variable now. We dey set am because we need them to specify how many times we want make this code inside these curly braces run. So after you don set your initial variable I, you go come set the condition wey you want make the for loop dey terminate. So we say we want make the for loop terminate when our I variable becomes more than 5. Now when we use this statement, I lesser or equal to 5. Then finally we set the increment. The increment na by how much we want make our I dey increase every time we run this code wey dey inside these curly braces. This kind loops dey very common for JavaScript, and you will come across them for basically any program wey you see. So again, our condition dey talk say we want our initial starting point of counting how many times this loop go run. We want the initial starting point to be 1. Now why we set this initial variable to be 1. And then as long as this initial variable dey less or equal to 5, do wetin dey inside these curly braces. And then afterwards, add 1 to the initial variable. That is, when you don run this thing with the inside these curly braces for the first time, add 1 to the I. And then check if I still dey lesser or equal to 5, then run these curly braces again. Then add 1 again. And as long as this I still dey less or equal to 5, continue to run this code and increase them by 1 every time. So for the first time, I na 1. And since 1 dey less or equal to 5, our program will do wetin dey inside these curly braces, which is to console log wetin we still make the console log. But after e do this thing for the first time, e go add 1 to our I because of this I plus plus. So the second time our I will become 2. But since 2 still dey lesser than 5, that means say e still fulfill this condition. And then e go run this code again. So e go console log this string again. But this time our I go don change to 2. And then e go add 1 again after e run am for the second time. Then e go check again. Yes, q still dey lesser or equal to 5. So e go run am again. The I go become 3. Yes, 3 still dey lesser. Then e go run am again. But after e run am the 5th time, e go come add 1. So now this I go become 6. So by the time we dey try run am the 6th time, e go first check the condition with our I be now 6. Shey e still meet this condition? Shey e still dey lesser or equal to 5? Then e go see say no, e no dey lesser. Now it will come stop. So this loop could only run 5 times because of the condition wey we specify. If you want this code to run 10 times, you fit also do am. So now instead it will be lesser or equal to 10. If you want make it run 100 times, you fit do am. If you want make it run 1000 times, there is no limit. Also, if you want make the step, that is by how much your I they increase every time we run am once, you fit also do am. Now we also get a specific kind of for loop. We will use loop through items in an array, and another way we dey take loop through items in an object. We go look at this one after we look at the second type of loops, will be while loops. While loops they loop as long as one condition take true. The way we dey take write while loop na kind of like for loop, but instead of writing 3 things for inside our bracket, that is the variables, the increment, and the condition, we go write am in a different way. For example, in this example code, we get our I variable wey we set to be equal to 0. This na our initial variable. And like I tell you before, this initial variable fit be anything. It fit be I, it fit be boy, girl, cookies, cup, it fit be anything, but na I most programmers they like use. Then after the initial variable, you go write the while keyword, and now na inside the bracket of the while keyword, now you go write your condition. But now maybe 3 things they inside this bracket, but just 1 thing. The other 2 things, you go write them in different places. Only our looping condition go take inside this bracket. Then we go come write our curly braces to do whatever we want to do. Then we go come write our increment. So now in this our example code, as long as cup dey less than 3, e go continue to console log I don't drink cup. When cup reach 3, e go stop. Again, this one dey very simple. As you dey see, e just be like our for loop, but the difference that in how we dey write am. The first difference na how we write our initial variable. The second na how we write our condition, and the third na where we write our increment. In for loop, everything dey inside this bracket, but for while loop, we write our initial variable for in online, and we write the condition inside the bracket of the while loop. Then we write the increment only after we don't do wetin we want do. The third kind of loop wey we get na the do while loop. This one be like while loop, but you get one major difference. You see, the do while loop go run once first before e even check any condition. So you see, for while loop, e go first check the condition before e run the code in the curly braces. Even the first time, e go still check the condition first before e run am the first time. But for do while loop, e go first run the code within the curly braces first before e even start to care about any condition. So for this example code, we dey set the initial variable x to be equal to 0 like normal. But then now, we dey do the thing for the curly braces immediately without checking for any condition. Whether x dey greater or less than anything, we no care the first time. We dey do this thing first no matter what. Then once we do am that first time, e go on write the increment, and then at this point, e go come start to dey check for conditions. You fit even see for this example code, our condition na say x must be less than 0, but our variable na 0. And 0 no dey less than 0 because 0 na 0. So this code no suppose run if to say na while loop, but since na do while loop, e still run the code once even though x less than 0 no dey true, But after that, once he run am the first time, he go come check the condition, and now he go stop. And for the two other kinds of for loops wey I tell you say we get, the for loop for looping through an array and the for loop for looping through an object. The first one for looping through an array na wetin we dey call for of loop. This for of loop go loop through items in an array of things. E no matter which things dey inside the array. You go loop through each item one by one. Now, even though you fit technically use normal for loop to look through an array, the problem with that na say sometimes you no know how many things dey inside your array, or your array fit contain flexible number of things. So instead of writing one particular number where you want make the loop stop, you go write the for of loop to say, okay, just loop as many times as the things, the items wey dey inside this array. So even if your array change, even if e get bigger or e get smaller, your code go still work. For example, in our example code wey we get for here, we get fruits array wey contain 3 items. Now, we fit easily set our variable I to be equal to 0, and then our condition to be whenever I is less than 3. But this one go work because we know how many items dey inside our array. If our array gets bigger at any point or it gets smaller, then this code go turn to bad code, because now it could stop at 3 even when our array don't get as big as 5 or more. So instead of coding the number of times where you want make it run, you fit simply write your conditions inside your for of loop. How we take the write the for of loop now? Say you go write before keyword, and then inside your bracket you go create a variable wey be the singular form of your array. So let's say our array now, this fruits array, we go on say let fruits of fruits. So this let fruit, now say they create this singular form of the array which stand for each item in the array. So now e go call loop how many times the number of items wey we get for our array, and e go always start with the index 0 to correspond to the first item in the array. Then the next time it go be index 1, index 2, and it go run until it reach the last item in the array. So for this example code, this code go loop 3 times. So the first time our fruit variable go stand for the first fruit, and the second time it go stand for the second fruit, and the third time it go stand for the third fruit. The beauty of this one now na say if our items for our array increase to 10 or 100 or even 1 million, we no need to dey write I equal to 1, I less than 100 or 1 million. Once we write this let fruit of fruits, where we use the singular form of our array to indicate each item, then it will continue to work no matter how many items dey inside our array. And this singular variable wey we use, na the convention to always use the singular form of your array. Though even if you use any other thing, it will still work, but you must dey consistent to make am dey easy to remember and easy to follow. Na why we dey always use the singular form of the array. For in loop, na in we take the loop through object. It just be like for of loop for arrays, but the difference na say objects they get key value pairs. Remember, so to use for in, you go use them like our example code where we get an object containing the name of a person, their age, and their city. So with for in, we fit access the key, which is the property, with our first variable after this for. This variable go represent each of the property, and it go dey move to the next one as with a loop. It go start with the first property, the second property, the third, and so on. And then after the first variable, we go all write in. Remember, for arrays we write off, for properties na in. So for the variable in, then the name of our object. So now inside our curly braces, we don't get access to both the properties of our object with this first variable, which we choose to use key in our own example. We fit use anything, but with this variable, we fit get access to the keys. And then to get access to the value where this key represent, we go just use bracket notation. So we go say the name of the object where we dey loop through, open square bracket, then the key, wey we don represent with this variable. This one now will give us the value. Remember, we dey use bracket notation to access the value. So we just dey say the name of our object, bracket notation, the key, then e go return the value. Na basically wetin we dey do for here be that. So the first time this loop go run, our key will be this name and our person key will be the person name, which will be Tunde. Then the second time our key go be age and our person key go be the person age. And the third time it will be the person city. And thanks to this simple code now, our loop will run only for the number of items we get inside our object. And even if our object expand, the code go still work and it go dey give us the correct value every time. Now, whenever you dey write loops, you get one small warning wey you gats dey keep in mind every time. This one na wetin we dey call infinite loop. Infinite loop na wetin dey happen when your loop continue to run without ending. E go run forever, and this one go cause your program to terminate. E go crash your program, e go crash your system. So wetin you mean by infinite loop and wetin dey cause am? Make we check this example code. You see, inside this code, we write a while loop, but for our while loop, we simply dey check for I. And inside the second example, we dey check while true. You see, the first code no go terminate because just writing this while I, we dey say make our code continue to dey run this loop as long as I returns true. And I tell you say any number for JavaScript could naturally return true as long as there no be 0. So this our variable go continue to dey return true, and this code wey dey inside this curly braces go continue to dey run forever and ever and ever. We go lead to crashing of our program. So to make sure say your while loop or any loop wey you write for programming no crash your program, the condition must be something wey no go dey always true. E go gats reach false at some point. Na why when we write our first one wey we give our condition of I less than 5, we make sure say okay, after the 5th time, this condition no go dey true, so it will stop. But if you get code like this, we say the condition go always remain true, then your code go crash your system. And the second condition is dey even worse because this one we just simply dey say while true, and true will always be true. So our code go loop forever, and this one too go crash our program. Finally, for our loop lesson, we go look at wetin we dey call nested for loops. Nested for loops means say you write for loops inside for loops, and yet if you write more for loops inside for loops like we do for this our example code. For this example code, wetin we dey do dey simple. First of all, we dey loop 3 times. We dey loop 3 times in a normal way by setting our initial variable equal to 1. And we are saying as long as this variable dey lesser or equal to this one, then do wetin dey inside this bracket. But then wetin dey inside this bracket na another loop. And now wetin this second loop dey talk must say set another loop and then loop 3 times. Each time when you loop this second time, do wetin dey inside this second curly braces. And wetin dey inside the second curly braces, we just dey say console.log string row plus wetin the current value of our row looping variable be. Then we dey also the console log this string column to be wetin the current value of our column variable, which is our second variable in the second for loop, to console log wetin e be. Now, wetin you think say could be the result? The result could be this. The first time this for loop runs, the value of our row variable could be 1, and then it go check this condition, which is to say shey 1 dey lesser or equal to 3. Yes. Okay. So now it go enter inside these curly braces to meet the second for loop. Now we know that the first value of the row now still 1 at this time wey we dey enter inside this second for loop. But now this for loop too go initialize a own variable. So the value of this variable for the second loop, which is the colon variable col, go be 1 as well. So now at this point, the row now 1 and the col now 1. Then he go run within the inside these curly braces of the second loop. Then he go back. But now he no go back to the first for loop because we still dey inside the second for loop. So it go back to the call of the second for loop. And at this point, our row, which is the variable of the first for loop, now still 1. But the value of the second variable of the second for loop call go be true. Then it go run this curly braces again and then go back still to this second for loop because we still dey inside this second for loop. Then at the third time, the code will be 3. Now when you go back the fourth time to run this second for loop, you go change this condition and you go realize, okay, now 4 don't dey greater than 3. So now you go back to our first for loop. And at this point now, the value of the row go be 2. Then since this 2 still dey lesser than 3, you go enter our second for loop and it go begin the process again. It go initialize them to 1. It will start with 1 again. Then it go check, okay, it is 1 lesser or equal to 3. Yes, it go run this with the value of row as 2 and call as 1. Then it will go back still to this one inside. Now the call will be 2 and the row will still be 2, followed by the third time with row as 2 and call as 3. But then the fourth time, this condition no go dey true again. Then it will go back out. Now for this out, our row don't become 3 because this is the third time. Then is 3 lesser or equal to 3? Yes. So it will still go inside again. Start again from 1. So now the row is 3, the call is 1. Then it will come back inside A with call as 2. Then it will come back again with call as 3. At this point now, our row na 3 and our call na 3. Then it will go back with the call as 4. But at the point where the call before, it will check our conditions. He say, okay, 4 is not lesser or equal to 3. So it no go run this curly braces. It will go back out. Now for this out too, our row don't become 4. You could check on again. Is 4 lesser or equal to 3? No. So he go come out from this one again. So he go come out from this our for loop entirely.